The next stitch we're going to learn is the half double crochet stitch, or the half treble crochet stitch for UK terms. This is the next stitch size up. Remember I said crochet builds up with stitches. So the single crochet that we did last time is the first, or is the smallest stitch, and the next one up is the half double crochet. So, by raise of hands, if anybody can tell me what the turning chain is for the half double crochet, you'll get a star by your name. I'm just kidding. Since the turning chain for the single crochet was 1, the half double crochet is going to be 2. So whenever we build up our row, we're going to do 2 chains to build up to the height that we need for the half double crochet. So let's talk about how to attach our new color to do our half double crochet swatch. So remember I had you make a little loop at the bottom of your single crochet swatch so you knew where the bottom was. Make sure that's on this side. And then we're going to insert it into the first V. Here we go. So see this little lump here? You're not going to go into that bump or try to like make a V out of these two, because that's not a V. This is the V. So that's where we're going to stitch into. And to attach the yarn, there's a few different ways you can attach the yarn, but I'm just going to show you one way right now, and then when we talk about doing different colors and stuff, I'll show you all the other ways. So I just have my hook in the stitch that we're going into, and then I have looped my yarn around a hook. Leave a pretty good tail, about 5 inches, because we're going to have to weave those in later, and you want to make sure that you have enough length to weave them in. And then we're just going to pull it through. And then you're going to make sure that the short end is wrapped over the long end that we're working with, and that kind of secures it. And we'll tie it in later. But just for now, just wrap it over. So to do the half double crochet, remember I said we're going to do 2 chains for the turning chain, or in the case for this row, the building chain, because we're not actually turning it yet. So we've done 2 stitches, and this actually counts as a half double crochet. And now we'll do the next stitch. We'll actually do the half double crochet in this one. So remember with the single crochet, we put our hook in first, then we wrapped over. With the half double crochet, and from all of the other stitches from here on out, you're going to wrap over the yarn before you stick it into the V. So wrap over the yarn first, and then insert it into the stitch. Make sure all of your stitches are around the shank, and then wrap over, and you're going to pull through a loop. So now we have 3 loops of yarn on our hook, slipped onto the shank. And for the half double crochet, we're going to wrap around, and then we're going to pull it through all 3 loops on the hook. So first one, second, and third. And once you get used to this stitch, you will be able to pull it through all 3 at once, but we're going to do it like one at a time for right now. So wrap around, insert into the V, making sure that everything slips down to the shank to get your size right. Wrap over, pull through. Here we have 3 stitches on our hook. Make sure they're on the shank. Wrap over, and then we're going to go through all 3. 1, 2, 3. So there we have 3 half double crochets. Remember that turning chain or building chain counts as a stitch. So wrap over, insert into the V, wrap over, pull through and slip down, wrap over, and then pull through all 3. 1, 2, 3. have 4 stitches. Wrap over, insert into the V, wrap over and pull through, slip down to the shank, wrap over and pull through 1, 2, 3. That second one can be a little bit difficult to get through, which is why we slip down to the shank, because it keeps that second stitch that we wrapped over, because that one's just a wrap. It's not actually attached to anything like this one or this one is. So when we go through this one, it's really easy, but this one kind of is wrapped there, so it's kind of hard to get it through sometimes. So you just kind of have to finagle it through. Oops, almost picked up another yarn. There we go. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to go to the end of the row. I'll do a few at normal speed for you guys to kind of see how I can go through all 3 at the same time. If it's easier for you to go through all 3 at the same time, you can totally do that from the beginning. I just know when I started out, it was a lot easier to go through each of them separately. Or you can go through the first 2 and then go through the last one by itself. So you can do something like this, slip through and then through that one. And that'll kind of get you used to that method, because the next stitch kind of uses that, slipping through the first 2 and then going through the last one. So at the end of the row, we're going to count all of our stitches and make sure that we have 20, because we're staying with 20 stitches through this whole process. And then the last V is right here. Remember, don't try to stitch into that little chain that we made at the end of our row. You just want to stitch into the stitch. And see, it looks even. So let's count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So we're going to insert our hook from the working side to the non-working side. Reinsert it in there. Now let's show you how to do the next row of half double crochets. So we're going to do 2 turning chains, and then we're going to turn our piece over. And since this is kind of where it gets confusing, because with the single crochet, we did crochet into this first chain because the single crochet turning chain doesn't actually count as a stitch. The half double crochet turning chain of 2 chains does count as a stitch. So we're not going to stitch into this first spot right here. Do you see how they line up? There's the last stitch we did. The turning chain, that's 2 stitches. So we're going to stitch into this second hole right here under the second V, because the first V actually is being taken up by this turning chain. That's kind of confusing in the beginning. So we do our half double crochet here. So see how those line up? That actually does count as a chain. So just do your second row, working across. Make sure that you have 20 stitches. I'll meet you at the end to show you how to stitch into that turning chain, because it can be kind of difficult at first. So I'm at the end of the row. We have 3 stitches that haven't been stitched into yet. So let's do, these first 2 are going to be regular stitches, and then this one is going to be the top of the turning chain, so that can be a little bit difficult. Let's see here. Even the top of this stitch is giving me issues. There we go. So on the turning chain, since the chain was made on this side, it's kind of difficult to see from the back where we're stitching here. We're going to crochet into the top V of the turning chain, so into this one right here. Remember to wrap your yarn around. That's always something I forget, and then I get my hook underneath it and have to take it out again to wrap it around the yarn. So there we go. We're under the V, and then pull through and finish it off. So if you just absolutely can't get into that chain, there's like, it's not happening. There is something you can do as a beginner, but I wouldn't continue to do this, so just do it until you're comfortable with making rows and more comfortable with making stitches, and then start crocheting into that turning chain. But if you absolutely can't get into the turning chain and you have to continue, you can crochet into this hole down here. So I'm wrapping my yarn around, and instead of going into the turning chain, I'm going to go down into the hole between the stitches. So here's the turning chain, and I'm going to go down into the space between the stitches. So it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't look that much different, but you will start to notice if you continue to crochet. So that's just a fix for beginners, but I had to use it, and I know a lot of other people that have had to use it, so it's just there because sometimes it's difficult to crochet into the chain. Now that we're at the end of the row, we need to do our turning chain. So chain 2 stitches, and turn the piece over. Remember, the turning chain counts as the first stitch, so skip this first V or hole, and then we're going to stitch into the second stitch. So wrap around, insert into the second stitch, and then crochet across. So I'll meet you at the end of the row to end off and turn around. So we're at the end of our third row, and I have 3 stitches left, so 1, 2, and then our turning chain that we're going to have to stitch into. So wrap around, and let's do the last 3 stitches. And again, on the turning chain, you can either, if you can't get into the turning chain, just go ahead and stitch into this hole right here. But I'm going to stitch into the turning chain. If I can do that while still keeping the camera steady. So I kind of want to compare this to the other side so you can kind of see what you're getting yourself into whenever you crochet into the hole there. So this is the stitch that we just did, where we stitched into the turning chain and not the hole. And then here's the one where we stitched into the hole. So you can see that the hole there is a little bit bigger on this one because we kind of stitched into it, which opened it up more. This one we didn't stitch into it, we stitched into the side of it. So we kind of kept it the size that it's going to be. So if you continue to stitch into the hole instead of the turning chain, you're just going to have bigger holes right here, which is kind of undesirable, but you're going to have a hole anyway, so if you're a beginner and you don't mind there being a big hole, it's not a big deal. Just so you know, that's kind of why you stitch into the turning chain and not the hole. So let's do our last turning chain. So I crocheted 2, skip the first stitch, and we're going to crochet into the second stitch. So we're just gonna continue along the 4th row, and I'll meet you at the end. So here we are with the last 3 stitches. Just gonna knock those out real quick. I don't know why the second to last stitch is giving me issues tonight. You know, I guess you could stitch into the hump of the turning chain. I've never done that before, but I told you you could stitch into the humps of the chain, so why not stitch into the hump of the turning chain? So let's see how that looks. Yeah, it doesn't look bad to me. Let's see how the front looks. So, beginners, instead of stitching into the hole or the turning chain, you could also stitch into the hump, I guess. The hole's smaller than the one that we stitched into the hole, so hey, learn something new. Okay, so I know I told you that we did 4 rows because I wanted the ends to be on opposite sides, and that's only like that on odd number rows, and I knew that whenever I went into it, but I forgot about the chain being one of the rows. So that's why they're on opposite rows, and from now on they'll be on the same side. So don't worry about it. We'll just we'll do 2 sides on this color, and then we'll start the next color on this side, and then they'll have 2 colors, and then so on and so forth. So it'll be okay. Just ignore me and my sinus med self. I'm sick. I blame being sick. Is that okay? So let's do our last chain, and then we're going to cut our yarn. Cut about, you know, give about 5 inches. And then pull it through. And there is our half double crochet.